Welcome to today's lecture on order of operations. I would like to start today with you starting the lecture. I would like you to solve this problem here. Take a few moments, pause your video, solve this. I bet you that one half of the class got 18 and the other half got 10. Which one is correct? Are they both correct? No, only one is correct. Remember, order of operations stands for bedmiss. We have it down here, bedmiss, also sometimes known as pedmiss. The B stands for brackets. It's the order in which we must do our mathematics. We just can't do the mathematics in any order we choose. We must follow the rules of bedmiss. And many semester students have asked me during a test, "Sir, do I have to use bedmiss on this question?" The answer to that question is always yes. Bedmiss must always be adhered to. So we always start with brackets, then we move on to exponents, then division and multiplication as a grouping. Perhaps you read the word too literally. You believe that division must always be done before multiplication because it comes first in the word bedmiss. That is incorrect. When you read the problem from left to right, you do whatever comes first. So if multiplication comes first, you do that. Or if division comes first, you do that. Then once that's done, we move on to addition and subtraction. And once again, this is a grouping. You don't always do addition first, just because it comes first in the name bedmiss. You do subtraction first or addition first, whatever comes first when reading the problem from left to right. Thinking about that in mind, let's solve this problem. Here we have addition, we have multiplication. What do we do first? We do multiplication first. 4 plus 2 times 3 is 6. In this case here, 10 is our answer. So you can see this, in fact, is the correct answer. Perhaps if you got this wrong, this is what you did. You did 4 plus 2 times 3. You just started with 4 plus 2. That's equal to 6. 6 times 3 is 18. This section is correct, but these two parts here, they don't link up because you haven't followed the proper order of operations. If it helps you, I would recommend writing the word bedmiss on your page when you're doing your problem to help remind you the proper order. Now remember here, we start with brackets, then exponents, then division, multiplication, whatever comes first when moving from left to right, then addition, subtraction, whatever comes first when moving from left to right. I would like you to try these practice problems on your own if you can. So you can pause your video, give them a try. There's one more down below here. Give these a try and see if you know how to do bedmiss. When you come back, we'll take them up. Now, once again, I remind you that you need to try this on your own. If you're just going to watch these videos, watch me do math, hopefully it's entertaining, but you're not going to learn the math itself. So please give it a try. Let's go through this now. I'm going to write the word bedmiss here to remind me of the order of operations. So we have addition, we have subtraction, but what we have is a grouping here, brackets. So we must do the brackets first. 4 plus 0 minus 7 is going to be minus 7. Here we have a plus sign and a minus sign. Odd number of minus signs. Remember, we spoke about this in a previous lecture. If you have an odd number of minus signs, the answer is going to be negative. If you have an even number of minus signs, the answer is going to be positive. This is going to be 4 minus 7. This equals minus 3. Final answer. The next one now. Once again, we have an addition sign, we have a multiplication sign, but we have brackets to group things together. So we must do our brackets first. 6 plus 3 is 9 times 4 in this situation here equals 36. Next up, we have no brackets here. When there's no brackets, bedmiss is more important. Quite often, when there's brackets, it sort of gives you a hint about what you have to do first. When there's no brackets or exponents, you have to figure out what you do first. In this case here, multiplication. So we're doing 7 times 6, which is 42. Add to that 5. Final answer is 47. Next up now, we have addition, we have subtraction, we have multiplication, and we have grouping. What do we do first? Brackets. 5 plus 5 minus 4 is 1 times 0. Next up, what do? We have addition, we have multiplication. We do multiplication first. 0 times anything is 0, 5 plus 0, and then we get final answer of 5. Very similar here. Addition, subtraction, multiplication, brackets. So we do the brackets first. 2 plus, in this case here, 6 minus 7, minus 1 times 6. We then do multiplication next. Minus 1 times 6 is minus 6. 2 plus minus 6. In this case here, you see we have a negative sign and a positive sign, an odd number. So this is going to be 2 minus 6, which gives me an answer of minus 4. Moving along now, we have multiplication, subtraction, addition, addition. We must do multiplication first. 3 times 7, 21, minus 6 plus 1 plus 5. Now, bedmiss, it doesn't matter whether it's addition or subtraction. We just read the problem from left to right and we do them as they come. So we're going to start with subtraction. 21 minus 6 is 15, plus 1 plus 5. 15 plus 1 is 16, plus 5. And 16 plus 5 is going to be 21. It's a lot of different terms here. Remember, terms are separated by plus or minus signs. Well, we have to start with the brackets. So here, 1 minus 7 minus, in this case here, 5 minus 4 is 1, plus 2 times 1. Now, multiplication comes next. 1 minus 7 minus 1 plus 2 times 1 is next up. We have subtraction, subtraction, addition. Again, it's a grouping. We just read the problem from left to right and do them as they come along. So we'll start with 1 minus 7 minus 6 minus 1 plus 2. I can drop the brackets here. Doesn't change the value at all. And then we work on this one. Minus 6 minus 1 minus 7 plus 2. And lastly, minus 7 plus 2 is minus 5. Okay, last problem in this set now. Brackets. We start with brackets first. 5 minus 2. 2 minus 5 is minus 3 times 6. You can see we have multiplied by here. We know that this means multiplied as well. So we're just going to work through this. We're going to have 5 minus. We're going to have 2 times minus 3, which gives me minus 6 times 6. And then we're going to work these together. 5 minus 6 times 6 is minus 36. You can see I left this negative sign out of the calculation. I left it there, and that's fine. Now, it comes here. We have two negatives making a positive. So 5 plus 36, which is equal to 41. So as I'll remind you again, when do you use your order of operations? You always use your order of operations. For many years, I've taught math. And I'll tell you this. I've learned more teaching math than I ever did learning math as a student. One way I can do that is I can start to understand how other people think, and I can help them overcome the misconceptions they have in math. So I've learned a lot about not only how I do math, but more about how others do math, which is not something you get as a student, really picking the brains of other people. So that's why I've crafted these questions here. These questions here are a bit different than maybe what you've seen before. In this case here, we got the A, B, C, and D. These questions are all incorrect. This is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong, and this is wrong. Part of my job as a teacher is that I have to mark assessments. And I don't look at the final answer and put an X or a check mark and give you full marks. I like to go back and see how you were thinking and try and figure out what you did wrong, what misconception you have. I want to do that so I can teach you to overcome that misconception. That's why I tell you, you need to learn from your mistakes. You need to look at your quizzes and look at your tests and try and determine where you went wrong. So what I'd like you to do with this one, I'd like you to try this on your own. I'd like you to solve it first of all, see if you can get the right answer, and then go back and try and figure out what is wrong with this question. What order of operations was done out of the proper order? And then we'll take them up. So give that a try now. Let's solve these now. So here we have 5 times 3 plus 2. We're going to write the word bedmiss here. We'll start with brackets. So 5 times 3 plus 2 is 5, and this equals 25. So you can clearly see 17 and 25 are not the same number. This is incorrect. So what happened here? How could you possibly get 17 as the correct answer here? Well, there's only two operations. There's addition and there's multiplication. We knew addition had to come first, so perhaps the student did multiplication first. Let's see what happens if we do that. So 3 times 5 is 15, plus 2 equals 17. That's what they did wrong. So remind them to always do your brackets before we do multiplication. Let's try the next one now. We have 4 plus 2 times 3. I'm going to write the word bedmas here once again. And when we do that, we just must do multiplication first. 4 plus 2 times 3 is 6, and then we get 10 as our answer. And you can see 10 and 18 are not the same number. Something obviously went wrong. We did multiplication first. The only other option would be addition. Let's see what happens if perhaps the student did addition first. This is 6 times 3, which is equal to 18. We can see what happened. So remind them, we must do multiplication first before we do addition. Too often people do that. They just go along the question from left to right and just do whatever comes in that order. That is not how we do math. We must do math in the correct order. And that's what bedmas is. It tells us the order of operations. Next up now, let's give this a try. 12 divided by 2 times 3. Again, I'm going to write the word bedmas down here. And you can see we must do division first. So we're going to do 12 divided by 2, which is equal to 6. 6 times 3 is equal to 18. 18 is the final answer. It's not the same as 2. So what did the student do here? Well, once again, let's see, perhaps they did multiplication first. So if we did 2 divided by 2 times 3 is equal to 6, and then we work that out, yes, that's what they did wrong. That's equal to 2. So remind them, division and multiplication is a grouping, and we do whatever comes first when reading the problem from left to right. One more question. Oh, this one's a bit different. This one we have exponents now. We have to do exponents first. There's no brackets. We can skip over that. 3 times 4 times 4 is 16. And then 16 times 3, what do we have there now? 3 times 6 is 18. Carry the 1. 3 times 1 is 3 plus 1 is 48. So 48 is the answer. That is not 144. How could they have possibly got 144 here? Let's take a look. There's only two things here. It's either squared or multiplied by. I think I see it. So what I think they did 3 times 4 first, and then they squared it. They thought maybe there were brackets around there. That's what they did, yes. So what they thought was that these were grouped together. They are not. So what they did 3 times 4, which is 12, then they squared it, and then that is equal to 144. So if you don't see brackets, don't add them in. So hopefully you found this educational. Hopefully you got a better appreciation for your order of operations. I'd like you now to try these questions without a calculator. You need to start training your brain to do problems without a calculator. Too often, we just see a calculation and we just reach for the calculator immediately. I would like you to try and use the calculator as your last resort. Try and do these in your head. Now, maybe not on quizzes and tests. Maybe you want to use a calculator because there's limited time. You don't want to slip up. But when you're doing homework, you have plenty of time. Take that time. Train your brain to do the math. So give these a try. There's these problems here and a couple more down below. Notice these are very similar questions. The only difference is this exponent 2 has been moved about. So please pause your video. Give these a try without your calculator. Now let's take up these questions. Hopefully you didn't have a problem with them. If you did, not a big deal. That's why I take these out. So here we have -7 times -7. Now, of course, we know 7 times 7 is 49. And here we have two negative numbers, a negative and a negative. And remember from our previous lecture, if we have several negative numbers multiplied together, if we have an even number of negative numbers, it's going to be a positive number. 2 negatives make a positive, 4 negatives make a positive, 6 negatives make a positive. If we have an odd number of negatives, then it makes a negative. 1 negative is negative, 3 negatives are negative, 5 negatives are negative. So in this case here, there are 2 negatives. So in this situation, it is positive 49 is the answer. Moving along here, you can see in this case, there is an odd number of negatives. -4 times 6 is going to be -24. Question C. Here we have a positive, and a negative. So once again, there's an odd number. It's going to be negative. 2 times 4 is 8 times -2. In this case, it's going to be -16. Question D. We have 1, 2 negatives and a positive. There's an even number, so this is going to be a positive answer. -5 times -2 is +10. +10 times 3 is 30. 30 is the answer to this one. Here, two negatives. Once again, it's going to be a positive answer. Positive 3 times minus 2 equals minus 6. Minus 6 times minus 2 is positive 12. Here, we have three negatives, an odd number of negatives. So in this situation, our answer is going to be a negative number. Here we have minus 3 times minus 5. Two negatives make a positive. That's positive 15. Then positive 15 times minus 1 equals minus 15. Next up, G. Here we have an exponent on there. So we have minus 2 squared, meaning minus 2 times minus 2. Here we have 2, so it's going to be a positive answer. 2 times 2 is 4. Minus 2 times minus 2 is 4. We have a number of operations here. Let's write the word bedmas just to remind ourselves what the order of those operations are. Here we're going to start with the brackets. What's inside the brackets first? 2 times, here we want to have minus 4. Inside the brackets here, we have to have its own little bedmas. And here we're going to use exponents. We're going to square the minus 3 first of all. So minus 3 times minus 3, two negatives make a positive, equals positive 9. Next up, we'll continue on with what's inside the brackets. You can see here we're multiplying. 2, in this case here, minus 4 times 9, minus 36. Minus 36 times 2 is minus 72 is the answer to H. Here we have a number of bases all raised to an exponent. So we'll deal with them one at a time. So first of all, here we have minus 1 times minus 1 times minus 1. Three negatives. Three negatives is odd, it makes a negative. Minus 1 times minus 1 is positive 1. Positive 1 times 1 is minus 1. So the first one becomes minus 1. Next up, we have minus 2 squared. Minus 2 times minus 2 is positive 4. And lastly, 3 times 3 is 9. Bring these all together. Minus 1 times 4 is minus 4. And then lastly, minus 4 times 9, minus 36. Hopefully you didn't have a problem with that. Without a calculator, remember, you're supposed to not use a calculator. Again, I would like you to practice without a calculator just to try and build those core math skills up in your mind. Let's try these problems now. I said earlier that there's only one difference between these problems. The exponent has been moved about. Remember, we have to always follow the order of operations. We always have to follow bedmas. So let's do that now. We have brackets first. Here we have 3 minus 4. We start with that. Minus 4 minus 3. 3 minus 4 is minus 1. And then squared. Brackets are done. Here we're going to apply the exponent now. Minus 4 minus 3. Minus 1 times minus 1 is positive 1. You don't see a symbol in between. We know that means multiplied by. We have to do multiplication before subtraction. Minus 3. The answer here is going to be minus 7. Before we move on to the next one, I want to show you something here. This is a common mistake students have. They say, oh, sir, I know this. This is really easy. What we do is we just take the 2 and we distribute it here and here, in which case this would be minus 4 minus 3, 3 squared minus 4 squared. Please note, this is wrong. And if you do this on your test, I will write nope. I will write that. This is not the case. We can only distribute an exponent inside the brackets if it's a single term inside those brackets. Remember what a term is. A term are numbers not separated by plus or minus signs. Separate terms are separated by plus or minus signs. So you can see here, in fact, there are two separate terms here, 3 and 4, separated by the minus sign. So if you see a situation like that, we cannot simply just distribute the exponent inside the brackets. So please don't do this. Let's move on to the next one then. So now we've moved the 2 from outside the brackets to inside to be associated with a base of 4. Let's solve that now. Once again, we're going to start with the brackets. Inside the brackets, we have to do our little order of operations there. And here, of course, exponents comes before subtraction. So here 3 minus 4 squared, 4 times 4, 16. Next up, 4 minus 3. And then we have 3 minus 16, which is going to be minus 13. On the next line here, you see minus 3 and then bracket minus 13. So we know this means multiplied by. So here we do that first before we do subtraction. We do minus, we'll just do 3 times minus 13. In this case here, it's going to be minus 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 1 is 3, minus 39. Now you can see we have two negative signs. What happens when we have two negative signs? It becomes a positive sign. Minus 4 plus 39. And our final answer here is going to be 35. Very different final answer from J. All we did was move the exponent. When we do that, it changes everything about the problem. We'll do L now. We've moved the squared to the -4 as a base at the beginning. What we should do first, we should follow the order of operations. We should do the brackets first. So here, we're just going to leave the exponent there for now. -3. 3 minus 4 is -1. Now we're going to do the exponents. We're going to do -4 times -4, which is positive 16. And then we copy this down. -3 bracket -1. And we know if there's no symbol in between, we know that a number beside a bracket means multiplied by. Here we can say, drop the brackets, doesn't change anything. We say -3 times -1 is -3. Once again, we have two negatives. Two negatives make a positive. And here we have 19 as our final answer. Very important, you follow BEDMIS, and you can see just by moving around an exponent, we get a very different answer to this. So that is your lecture on order of operations. I do want you to try something else before we finish this lecture. The next series of lectures is going to be on fractions. And I know I get this all the time. Students start this class and they maybe have been to university and they say, "Sir, I've done calculus. I don't need to do this stuff." Well, you know what? I question whether or not you can use fractions. I took calculus in school, and I'll tell you this. I've only ever used calculus for one thing in my professional life. You know what that is? Teaching calculus. Never had an application for it in the lab, in the real world at all, personally. Now, this is not the case for everybody. That's just me. Personally, I would rather spend more time teaching students who are going to work in the lab to do statistics. That's much more useful to you. But calculus, it's good in a sense because it brings everything together. You have to understand all the mathematical operations in order to do that. Now let's bring it back a bit. Let's talk about fractions. I want you to give these a try without a calculator. I want you to see if you actually know how to use fractions. So give these a try. There's a number of problems here. I'll scroll up a bit. There we go. That's all of them. So give those a shot and do this without a calculator. Take your time. If you do well at this, then you can just glaze over the next series of lectures, no problem. But if you struggle at this, you really need to take some time and work on those lectures. So pause the video now, give these an honest attempt. What I'm going to do this time is I'm just going to write the final answer down. The reason why that is because I want to teach you this before I start going through all the different operations. So I'm just going to write the answer down here for each of these. This answer has been simplified if possible. So here's the answer to those problems. If you got those answers, that's wonderful. If you didn't, don't worry, we'll come back around and solve these. So we will take these up eventually, but for now I want to leave it there. If you got all these answers correct, that's wonderful. Remember, don't use a calculator. If you got these all correct and you were using a calculator, you cheated. Next time, try not to use a calculator. So that is today's lecture. We did the order of operations and we started to do an honest assessment of your skill using fractions. Until next time.